Welcome everyone. This is Easton here talking to you about the Earth's great change that is happening all over the Earth at the moment, affecting everybody living on Earth, affecting all the continents. The great change of Earth is the transformational awakening of consciousness, the movement from the head to the heart, and how that is happening in the lives of nations and the political, the geo-physical, the social, in as many ways as I can see it. I'm an esoteric astrologer and spiritual healer. StarAstrologyHealing.com is my website. This is the sixth talk in this series, where I'm just moving around the planet, looking at, I've been looking at the chart for the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere and the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. And this particular talk I'm looking at Iceland, Greenland and the North Pole. And I'm focused upon the period from the 21st of June 2015 onwards. Some of the things that I talk about may well occur in the second half of 2015, or some of them could take a little bit longer. Okay, so this chart's cast for 5 p.m. on the 21st of June from Reykjavik, and I'll just indicate to you what I can see that is specific to Iceland. First thing I notice is that the planet Jupiter, otherwise known as the Great Benefic, or the planet of joy, planet of the heart, brings forward the loving energy, brings forward grace and a connection to the heart of Earth. It sits in a very protective placement on the midheaven of this chart. Beautiful, beautiful placement of Jupiter. So there's a few things that this could well indicate. Having been to Iceland a few times, I'm well aware of the changes that have occurred in Iceland over the last 7 years, and there's been quite a lot of political change and a lot of hardship, economic hardship. But there's also been a phoenix-like growth and a movement out of the hard times of the economic collapse. I think it was 2007, could have been 2008, thereabouts. I take this Jupiter sitting on the top of the chart on the midheaven to indicate that there's a movement towards a governance of this country by the heart and through the heart and of the heart. And if I was an Icelandic person, I would be very happy to see Jupiter sitting in such a prominent position, because to me it means that by and large, and no country, no government's perfect, but by and large there's a sense of protectiveness or a benevolence or a heartfelt approach to that the government has to the people. This is the planet of grace, and there's no doubt about it that in 2015, grace surrounds Iceland. Okay, what else can I see in this chart? That's the first thing I notice. I know that there are some very powerful, dynamic, charismatic leaders in Iceland and emerging onto the Icelandic political stage, and I would say that will continue over the next couple of years. On the 21st of June, the sun has just entered into Cancer, and this is the sign of rebirth. And Cancer is an interesting sign of the zodiac. Some souls and some nations will appear to be moving retrograde, sort of moving backwards on the path of evolution, and others will be moving forward on the path of spiritual awakening. And this chart has a wonderful feeling of growth about it. The sun is, however, intercepted in the 9th house, and so one interpretation for that would be that despite this sort of capacity for wonderful heartfelt leadership, Iceland may tend to be overlooked on the world stage, just a sort of a small voice and maybe a small country, and may struggle to get their voice heard in Europe. The moon in Cancer has a lovely aspect. The moon in Virgo, I beg your pardon, in 0 degrees of Virgo has a fine, beautiful aspect to the Scorpio rising in 0 degrees of Scorpio. Clearly, Iceland is in for transformational change, and yet again there's this feeling of safety and protection for the people. Beautiful, beautiful sextile to the moon, which governs the common people. Now, Iceland, as we're all aware, is a country of fire and water, and we have seen the power of some of the volcanoes of Iceland as they've affected, international travel over the last few years, as the volcano with the unpronounceable name that starts with E erupted. Probably, is it 4 years, 5 years? I've lost track. But the power of the volcanoes in Iceland to impact the northern hemisphere is very well known. And when I look to the volcanic part of the chart, I can see that there's a sort of almost like there's a lot of volcanic instability that comes from Vulcan and Mars sitting conjunct the Sun, and yet in the Icelandic chart it looks almost like there's a letting off of steam or a controlled blast, which is a funny sort of turn of phrase. I know that Hekla is one of the very large volcanoes, a stratovolcano, last erupted in February 2000, but the volcano with the greatest potential for damage and for the precipitation of a massive ash cloud all around the planet is Katla. Now, the seismologists talk about Katla erupting once or maybe twice in a century, and the last time Katla erupted was 1915. So we've reached the whole century without Katla, without an eruption. So you could say Katla's overdue for an eruption. And yet, in the chart, the way I see it is that it's like a control blast, Well, here in Australia, if the miners are looking to send a depth charge down, they will lay the depth charge and do it in such a way that the most amount of power is generated with the safest response. And that's the feeling that I have when I look at the volcanic energy and I look at the chart for Iceland is, yes, there is volcanic energy. It's all over the planet, as a matter of fact, and yet in Iceland it appears that it erupts on a safe level. My geography is not all that great. I don't know what the closest town to Katla is, but I have a sense. I know it's down in the southwest, and I'm hoping that it's far enough removed from certainly far enough away from Reykjavik, and hopefully other small towns to not create harm. I look at the Uranus in the chart, and when I see Uranus in Aries in the 6th house, I see the recovery of the spirit and the economy. Well, maybe not the economy, but the inventiveness and the creativeness and the you can't keep a good Icelandic person down, and there's a resilience in the Uranus energy, and I have to say that because the way I look at it, the Uranus in this chart is that the spirit of the Icelandic people has heart in it, and they are working in harmony and cooperation with Earth's great change rather than fighting against it. Having said that, Saturn is still sitting in the house of income and money, creating a drag or a lag or hardship, cruel finances to certain sectors of the community. There's no doubt about it that some people are suffering on a financial level and some businesses are suffering, and that it would be foolish to imagine that the Icelandic economy will boom to how it was 10 years ago. That won't happen. It will never go back there. Unfortunately, the Saturn is having this sort of dragging energy on the finances of your average person. Pluto, planet governing volcanoes, sits in Capricorn, the sign of the zodiac governing tectonic plates, and Iceland is situated straddling two of the major plate systems. The eastern part of Iceland is on the European plate, and the western part of Iceland, where Reykjavik, the capital, is on the American plate. Pluto's intercepted excuse me, Pluto's intercepted in the third house, and I don't know, I just have this feeling that there'll be some kind of, and there's an inconjunct between Pluto and Jupiter, so fairly clearly there will be plate movement, but it's not what would have been predicted. And I don't quite know what I mean by that, except to say that there will be anomalies around the plate and the tectonic movement. Almost like adjustments over time, and I'd be inclined to say that even over the next 5 years there'll be almost like a letting off of steam, volcanic energy, as the plates move or slide. I think they separate. I don't know how much they move each year, but there's this sort of this feeling that I have of the controlled tectonic change, the controlled volcanic blasts, the controlled movement, plate movement. Yeah, almost sort of reminds me of a person, if a person had, let's say they'd broken their leg, you know, and they go back to the hospital to get the bones set, and something doesn't set quite right, and they have to go back again and again to keep getting the break reset in order for the leg to be viable. There's something about a resetting of the volcanic and the earthquake activity that is not completely destabilising, but neither is it functional in a sort of an optimal sense. So there's a process of adjustment going on. Okay, the North Node, which governs the fate of humanity en masse, sits in a sort of a dangerous position, exactly conjunct the 12th house. I don't really quite know what to think about that, except to say that whatever happens in Iceland has a run-on effect around the planet. Yes, so the capacity for the Icelandic tectonic and the Icelandic volcanoes and the Icelandic plate movements has a run-on effect throughout the planet. And yet for the Icelandic people there's this beautiful, beautiful protective energy of grace and wonderful leadership and heartfelt politics that seems to rise above some of the danger. Okay, that's probably all I'll say. Now, when I look at the map to see which lines contact and touch Iceland, the Jupiter line, the line of grace, goes through the western fjordlands of Snæfellsjökull, and it goes through the peninsula upon which Reykjavik is relatively close to. So that sort of south, well, the western corner of the island, sort of north and south, but the western end of the island is very protected. That's my feeling. The moon, also at the extreme eastern end of the island, has a sense of safety and protection also. And I know that the middle part of Iceland, from the north through the south, is where the European and the American plates merge, and that's the area of greatest danger. Okay, I'll move now to look at the Greenland chart. Okay, what shall I tell you about the Greenland chart? So the first thing I notice about the Greenland chart is that Pluto has an exact square to the Libra rising within 1.5 degrees. I'm inclined to think that within 1.5 years there will be a fairly major destabilisation of Greenland. Now this is already occurring and has been occurring for quite a while as the Greenland ice cap melts, and indeed the northern polar cap melts, and also the Icelandic glaciers retreat. So this is the glacial retreat that is happening, I would say, fairly rapidly. My guess is over the next 18 months, maybe not immediately, but over the next 18 months, with this fairly dramatic 1.5 degree square between Pluto and the Libra ascendant. The Greenland seems to hold the balance somehow, and the balance is shifting. Yes. Similar to Iceland, I see the Sun in Cancer intercepted in the 9th house, and we overlook Greenland at our peril, and the voice of the indigenous people of Greenland needs to be heard. And I guess I worry that some of the indigenous culture and traditions of Greenland could be lost. Sirius is sitting very prominent. Sirius, the fixed star Sirius, the fixed star associated with hope and a very strong caretaking role for Earth, sits also square the Libra ascendant, directly opposite Pluto. My sense with that is that there will be a tremendous amount of extraterrestrial activity and intergalactic activity and interplanetary contact between beings from other systems, outside of our solar system, into Greenland. It's almost like it's a first staging point. Particularly, I think, there may even be, particularly that sort of southwestern edge of Greenland. Okay, now there's a Uranus line, Uranus descendant line that sweeps in a mighty arc from the southernmost point of the Greenland coast and up into the most easterly point of the island, and I think this is the region that will potentially have the greatest change. Not necessarily immediately, but it could also be very suddenly. Chiron sits in Pisces and makes an exact trine to the midheaven, and that sort of reminds me of I think it's the Indigenous Canadian First Nations people who've been warning that there's major change happening on the Earth because the sun is not setting in the most northerly realms where it used to, and that the seasons are different, and that this has been this warning's been it's verified by NASA, who are also extremely concerned about the rapid changes with the glaciers and the northern polar melt, and potential for they say quite emphatically that we're moving closer to the next ice age. And when I look at Chiron in Pisces with an exact trine to the Cancer midheaven, all I can see is water everywhere, and that sort of big melt followed by who knows how. Look, it could be, I have no idea how long the NASA scientists are saying before we move towards the next ice age, but certainly from this chart the next decade looks very worrying. And there's nothing but melt water when I look at the Pisces, the Chiron and Pisces trining the midheaven. All I see is cold Arctic melt water. Yes, so to sum it up, and the other thing that I notice is Mercury in Gemini has a fairly strong connection through to the North Node and the Libra rising, and I suspect that there will be very, very strange weather and Arctic wind storms. If such a thing exists, they will get fiercer and more erratic and more unstable this year, and I would say over the next 5 years. That's probably all that I will say about Greenland, and I'll talk now about, I have one more chart here, and I've done it for the magnetic North Pole. Now, the magnetic North Pole, I did a little bit of reading about this, and I've discovered that the magnetic North Pole, I'm tongue-tied here, moves, I think it moves 55 kilometres west from Canada, moving towards Russia every year for the last, I saw it before and now I can't remember, was it over the last 100 years? I think I saw a map. I'll find it and post it when I get to that part of the presentation. But the magnetic North Pole for the 21st of June 2015 is situated at 80.5 degrees north and approximately 73 degrees west. And it doesn't matter what time zone I do it on, time is irrelevant really. So even though this chart says 3 p.m, it's that's 3 p.m. if it's based on, I think I use the Greenland time, but all the time zones meet at the magnetic North Pole. Now this is an extremely dramatic chart. The midheaven's 0 degrees, the ascendant's 0 degrees, the IC, the bottom of the chart, the 4th house cusp is 0 degrees, and the 7th house cusp is 0 degrees. It's a complete new beginning. A complete new beginning for the magnetic North Pole. It's like everything old, everything that we've known about the North Pole is changing and is about to change, and I would have to say again within 2 to 3 years. It'll take 2 to 3 years by solar arc for the Vulcan and the Mars to come and sit conjunct this most dramatic 0 degrees of the cardinal signs. 0 degrees of every single cardinal signs is the largest metaphor you could possibly imagine for the new birth and the new earth that's coming. And so I would imagine that the pole will no longer be wherever the magnetic North Pole is in the future new earth. It won't be where we currently know it to be, between Russia and Canada and not far from Greenland. It will be somewhere else. And of course this is one of the major predictions from what's Nancy's, the woman who channels all the Zeta talk, Nancy, can't remember her surname, zetatalk.com, and you'll find all of Nancy's amazing predictions. So when I look at this chart for the magnetic North Pole, I'm immediately thinking that the pole will be somewhere else. It's the beginning of the new day that will be dawning all over the earth, and the new day is dawning. Now, we know that our pole has been shifting quite dramatically. I think they measured it back in 2004 when the Boxing Day tsunami occurred, and the poles shifted then. When the Fukushima earthquake went off, the poles shifted then. Here in 2015 we have so many volcanoes. We've very recently, just a matter of a few short weeks, couple of weeks ago, we've had an 8.1, I think it was, that was reported in some circumstances in the Himalayas. We have major volcano in Chile erupting, and the poles are literally being rocked and shaken and moved off their axis. One of the powerful visions that I've had a couple of months ago when I was meditating on the global changes, well, I had a sense that the mountains would fall and the oceans would rise, and then the sky would fall, the stars would fall. And of course the stars falling is it's a very potent symbol for a pole shift that really makes life unsustainable on Earth, and it's part of the prophecies of the Native American people, and it's part of Nancy's Zeta Talk prophecies, and that's the feeling that I get when I look at this chart. I feel dizzy. I feel as if the sky is falling. The Earth at the very bottom of the chart is in 0 degrees of Capricorn conjunct the point of spiritual entry into the world, the 4th house cusp. So the need for a complete new vista and a new Earth and a pole shift is coming from the spiritual realms of Earth, and it is being directed and is part of the great plan as we move into the age of the heart. Yes, and the next 2 or 3 years looks as if so much can happen, and so much particularly to do with volcanic activity and things that we have an inability to predict what may happen. Completely, very, very difficult to predict what may happen in the next 2 to 3 years, except to say that the weather on Earth is changing dramatically, that there will be a massive loss of light. The moon sits on the 12th house cusp as a result of what happens when the pole shift occurs, the next major pole shift, not just minor little ones, but a major systemic pole shift occurs. There will be, the skies will fall, that there will be massive loss of life. My spiritual teacher, the Lady Ananda Tarashan, she's written extensively about this, and she speaks about the evacuation of Earth and the preparation for the age of the heart, and I strongly encourage you to look to maitreyatheosophy.org. I'll put the reference at the end of this talk. I'm nearly finished now, but I will just look at the map for the magnetic North Pole. And it's looking at this map, I'm looking at the all of the lines from the chart, the Grand Cross, and they cross almost like a parcel that's been sort of tied up. You know, when you have if you have a gift for somebody and you want to put a beautiful ribbon on it, and you pull a beautiful, let's say a ruby red ribbon, and you pull it around the bottom of the box, and then you put another ribbon, it could be a rose pink or a violet ribbon, and you pull that across the other 2 sides, and together you tie a bow off at the top of the box. Now imagine that instead of a box it's spherical, and that the bow's being tied off really looks like it's being tied off in the heart of Russia. And this bow that I'm seeing tied off is the sort of the Grand Cross that's being made up of Pluto and the North Node, and the Sun and Mars and Vulcan and the South Node. And these are, well, I would be inclined to say that this is every large volcano on Earth going off at once. That when such a matter occurs, when such a thing occurs, then we will have a major pole shift, and the new Earth, the time for the new Earth will come, and this phase of life on Earth will complete. Whether that's in the next decade, certainly the rapid movement of changes of ice looks to be that it could take up to a decade, whereas the very dangerous volcanic activity, I'm more inclined to think, is the next 2 or 3 years. Anywhere really from the middle of 2015 through 2016, 2017 to the end of 2018. Yes. I leave you with that sobering thought, and again I encourage you to seek out the teachings of hope and the teachings of the Lady Ananda Tarashan through maitreyatheosophy.org or any other spiritual teacher who brings you hope. This has been Chandra Easton speaking to you about Earth's Great Change. Thanks for taking the time to listen. As I mentioned, this is number 6 in the series, and there's more to come. You can always find me at starastrologyhealing.com. I work with people, helping them with understanding what's going on in your life, your year ahead, to help you stay attuned to the changes and how they affect your life. Nice to connect. Bye for now.